Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every week me and Miss Boo pick out a movie, talk about how it impacts not only us, but the film audience at large. And this week we're talking about
The Godfather.
Yeah.
Which is celebrating its 50th anniversary as of this recording today.
Exactly. And also, if you didn't notice, we changed the intro again for like the fourth time this year.
It's not my doing, it's Dean's doing. He's constantly changing the intro. But we're talking
It's like my favorite thing.
I know it is. But we're talking about The Godfather today, and it is also the last installment of Mob Movie March.
It is. We've talked about some of your favorite mob movies or gangster flicks, and some of the best ones. And this is the one that it's all led up to.
This is the crown jewel. This is my favorite of the mob movies.
It's also arguably the most important one, the best one.
One of the best movies ever made.
Yes, all mobster movies, crime movies before this lead up to it, and all after it try and recapture success.
And the only one that ever could was The Godfather Part 2.
It's true. But we get to talk about Godfather Part 1, Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece based on Mario Puzo's novel. Where do you want to get started?
Well, have you read the novel?
Yeah, I've read the novel. It is... Okay, every single person who says, the book's always better than the movie, no, it's not. The Godfather book, I ain't gonna, besmirch the legacy of Mario Puzo, but that book is not good. It's, okay to, kind of bad. But the movie is
Perfection.
It's a masterpiece. It really is. And it's the thing where if you read the novel, have you ever read it or given it a shot?
Haven't, and I would like to give it a read because this movie is fantastic and I'd like to see where some of the story came from.
Yeah, if you really want to see that, then the Godfather Notebook is probably more up your alley, because that's Coppola taking the novel and beat by beat breaking it down and kind of picking and choosing what to incorporate. Because for those who don't know, there's about a fourth to a whole half of the book dedicated to a woman's surgery to some private parts of her body.
Okay.
And that's half the fucking book. It's
right.
Really weird. Really weird.
It does, and
there's whole sections dedicated to Sonny's anatomy, if you catch my drift.
I see where we're going here.
It's a pretty weird book.
But since you mentioned Coppola,
yes,
if you guys haven't been on our Instagram, you might not have known that we actually got to do something special for the 50th anniversary.
Yes, we did, and it was not only the brand new 4K restoration with Dolby sound,
which was beautiful,
at the Academy Museum. It also was preceded by a Q&A by Francis Ford Coppola himself.
And Talia Shire.
Yes, who plays Michael's sister.
Yeah,
she gets married.
Yeah, no, she's
an instrumental part of the movie, but no one remembers her name.
No, I think her name's Constance, right?
No, I don't think it's Constance. It's it's Connie. Yeah, because she's marrying Carlo. Connie Carlo. That, god damn it, it's all C names. But yeah, so she plays Connie, and it was really cool because we got to see Francis Ford Coppola basically just ramble for an hour just about the making of The Godfather. It was super cool.
I mean, not only see him, but we were front row.
Oh yeah, I sat 10 feet away from the guy.
And it was just astounding to be sitting there with a legend 10 feet away from us, and he's just, regaling the past, and, you watch, behind the scenes stuff about movies, and you hear people talk, and, what is it on DVDs when they do, the
commentary?
The commentary track, but to hear his own stories with him right there, and talk about, what was the most, influential thing that he remembers from making the movie. And you'd think maybe, the first day on the set, or one of the huge scenes of the movies, and it was getting the cast to assemble for the first time over dinner, and watching everyone interact and kind of become a family with each other after that. It
was so fascinating just to hear the man himself kind of break down how the movie got put together and how he approached it.
Don't get me wrong, I love seeing the movie, I love this movie, but I could have sat there for 3 hours just listening to him talk.
Oh yeah, it was fascinating.
It's we could have watched the movie at home, let him talk and tell stories of the past. I would have been totally happy with that.
Oh, absolutely. But the movie itself, because we saw it at the Academy Museum, and it was a beautiful restoration.
Yeah.
And granted, sitting in the front row was kind of hard looking up at the screen. Hurt my neck after a while.
It was. I mean,
But-
it was a little painful, but being able to be that close to him and to Talia Shire was just amazing. I mean, I think one of the biggest parts of that night for me, apart from the Q&A, was just walking into that massive theater and you have the beautiful score playing from the movie.
Oh yeah, the score is so good. But the other thing is, you know, even though you crane neck and all that, it was so engaging. When was the last time you saw The Godfather? Because for me, last time I seen it was probably like 10 years ago. Maybe less, but that's probably pretty good.
We saw it 5 years ago together for the 45th anniversary.
That's right, yeah, at that Fathom thing they did at the AMC.
And he kind of made a point before he left the stage that the movie had been cleaned up and restored. So when we saw it for the 45th, it was super dark.
Yeah, it was, well, that was the biggest problem with The Godfather for so long, was it was one of these movies, they thought, it's a gangster flick, it's gonna be okay, or it's gonna bomb. They didn't think it was gonna be a massive hit, so they released it, and then it became this massive thing, so they started doing, like, double, triple, 15th duplicates of all the negatives, and it destroyed the original negative.
Yeah, so seeing it this time, it was like, wow, we can actually see everything. And even in the scenes where it's dark, you can still make out what's happening. Not like before, where I was just kind of like,
oh, the grading process is so much better in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend anybody out there to go out and get the new 50th anniversary version of The Godfather. It's a whole different movie.
Yeah, get it or go to a screening because AMC is screening the movie for a limited time. But yeah, I think the last time I saw this was maybe a couple of years ago. And
it's been a minute for you too?
Yeah, it's been a minute. You know, I remember certain things and then there was stuff in the movie I was like, oh yeah, I remember that happened. That was funny. Or I like this part. Or just, you know, Don Corleone, you know, a face that he makes. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good bit.
That's the thing about this movie, right? Because this is probably in the zeitgeist, right? Like, people know this movie. And even if you haven't seen it in a long time, you could probably sum up the plot from just, like, pop culture.
Yeah.
And this is a big thing that I think we talk about kind of a lot. Like, that Scarface, you can kind of piece the movie together through pop culture references.
And
same with Goodfellas.
And then we were like, oh yeah, I forgot, you know, Push It to the Limit happened.
Yes, and Scarface. That was great. And this one was kind of even the same thing, because now I remember the big scenes of the movie, but I forgot how long the Italian sequence was, where Michael's in Italy.
I forgot how much I loved that sequence of just him and the two men, you know, walking through the countryside and how peaceful it is.
How pretty it is.
How pretty it is. It's like, that was something that I completely forgotten. And once we were watching it, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he goes to Italy and he marries. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with this movie. It's just, it's beautiful.
There's really not. There really isn't. Out of all the films we've watched this month, I would say that no other movie is this perfect. Maybe Once Upon a Time in America. Maybe. Because I really dug that movie. But this movie, I still hold The Godfather is the better film. Just because I feel it moves a lot better than Once Upon a Time in America.
And that's why I saved it for last, because this is my favorite of the genre, and it's no wonder that's beloved by so many people.
And you know what? Let's get into that. Because the whole thing of the podcast now is, you know, what the movies mean to us and what they mean to the world. And also, these movies still hold up. This movie definitely holds up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I want to know why this movie affects you so much. Why do you like this movie so much?
I don't know. It kind of speaks to me. It's beautiful in its own way, even though the nature of this film is very violent. It's just, there's something special about it. And that's what I love about Hollywood. There's so many movies, but there's just like those few movies for each person that just kind of touch you and you're not sure why. But
this is a movie you know you love it, but it's kind of in that weird can't articulate it phase.
Yeah, it is. And being able to see it on the big screen restored was just like watching it for the first time. Even though I can expect, you know, certain things, but it's just like, wow, this is spectacular to see it. Oh
yeah, it's a spectacular movie. Watching it this time, honestly, it's a movie I continually forget how good it is and how much I love this movie. Because, you know, it's a movie I've probably seen maybe like 3-4 times in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't gonna lie, the first 2 times were kind of like, I phoned it in. Because I was like 13 or some shit.
Yeah.
But watching it now, I'm like, yeah, this is actually probably a perfect movie. And not just like perfect like how Silence of the Lambs is perfect, right? Like, there's nothing objectively wrong with that movie, but you can't really chew on it for too long, or else it kind of loses the flavor. This movie, I feel like you can chew on it for hours.
Oh, yeah.
You can, like, think and meditate on it. There's so much there you can analyze, and all the themes, the messaging involved that you can really dig on. I mean, the whole theme of, like, family and power and like, the corruption of it.
I mean, you could even chew on the making of this movie where, you know, if you watch things about it or read about it, how much Paramount gave Francis Ford Coppola such a hard time, and they were like, you don't need to make this movie, and it's like, that'd be like someone saying, you don't need to make Citizen Kane, and it's like...
Well, here's the craziest part, is because Coppola didn't even want to make this movie. He basically made it because he's like, I need to make rent money.
Yeah, I need to make money, and he made a point of that during the Q&A. He was like, you know, I had 2 kids, and I had another one on the way, or he had his daughter during the making of this movie.
Here's what happened, all right? Because I know this in detail. Here's what happened. George Lucas, he releases THX 1138, right? That movie bombs.
Yeah.
Coppola had just made American Zoetrope, and he was pushing to make this the next big independent studio, right? First real big movie that comes out, bombs.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm $400,000 in the hole on my brand new company. Yeah, I got 2 kids, one's coming. I need to make money. And Paramount approached him and like, hey, we got a movie. It's called The Godfather. It's basically a for-hire project. If you come on, we'll pay you X amount of money. It'll get you out of the hole. And he's like, fuck it, I'm in. And that's the crazy thing. This wasn't a passion project. This was a for-hire job.
It was, but once he got into it and he was like, okay, I'm going to make it this way. I'm going to make it very authentic. And Paramount was like, no, you got to do it cheaper. No, you know what? You're kind of, giving us a hard time. Maybe we'll just replace you with somebody else. And it was him kind of fighting, I need to take care of my family. I need to get this movie done. It can't look on the cheap. It needs to look like a real movie. It needs to look like New York in the 40s.
I mean, he also had to fight so hard for the cast. Because he had to fight tooth and nail to get Brando in as Don Vito, and also to get Al Pacino in.
Yeah, because Al Pacino at the time wasn't that big of an actor, so the studio's I
think this was his first, real role, because I think before this he was a theater guy.
Yeah, and I think after this is when he got, into Serpico and...
Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah, so it was a real struggle, and I mean, I know one of the people that they wanted for Michael in this movie was Jack Nicholson. So it's like they were trying to, pull in these big-name actors, and...
They also wanted Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
Robert De Niro was approached way before Al Pacino.
Yeah, that was a big thing that he wanted De Niro in this movie, and it's just, they couldn't make it work, but he does make it into Godfather Part 2.
Yes.
And it's an amazing portrayal in Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to hear him talk about it and how it was a struggle just to get the cars that go with the period, and how they were like, okay, you're going to cut corners by putting wigs on people so we don't have to worry about hairstylists. But I mean, when you see the movie...
It's seamless.
It's flawless. It looks like you're transported back to the 40s.
And the other thing is we see it progress, because I think the whole movie takes place over the course of 10 years.
Yeah.
And you see, and it's so subtle how time changes and how we move from one year to the next. And it's a thing where you don't even realize once you're at the end of the movie, it's 1955.
Yeah.
And we've seen 10 years of these people's lives pass by. We see this family lose its patriarch. We've seen the rise of a new head of the family, and we've seen the shift of how crime works in America.
Lots of bloodshed.
All the bloodshed. And it's such a good, well-written film. It's so well directed. I mean, Grant, we're not breaking new ground here. We're praising The Godfather, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. I haven't heard anyone say that they don't like this movie.
This is one of those movies, objectively, you have to say, it's a great film.
It is.
Even if you don't like it, you have to say it's a great film.
It is, and I mean, for being a film where your biggest star is only in the movie for about an hour, and you have a smaller supporting cast that really pulls their weight.
I mean, yeah, because you're talking about Brando, right?
Yeah, Brando's only in the movie for about an hour.
Well, here's
and
the
this
thing.
is almost a 3-hour movie.
Here's the thing about Brando. Because, yeah, he's only in the movie for an hour. He's the supporting actor to Al Pacino's Michael. I think he got nominated for Best, like, Leading Actor or something like that.
He was nominated and won. That's the year that...
He refused it
Yeah.
with over Indigenous rights, and I believe that was a whole thing. But I remember that he's only in the movie for an hour, but he's playing, like, the supporting actor role, but it feels like he's the lead. Because he's the Don. So engaging.
Yeah, he's the patriarch of the family. Mm-hmm. So it's like we see this shift of the old Don kind of like, yeah,
he fades out as Michael comes in.
As Michael arises. And it's interesting to kind of see the change between Michael, who is, this war hero, to becoming head of the family.
And the regret that Don Vito has, because
he never wanted that for Michael.
He wanted Michael to be the legitimate one. He wanted Senator Michael Corleone, Governor Michael Corleone. He didn't want Don Michael Corleone.
Yeah.
And also, we got to talk about the Brando, right?
Yeah.
Because this cements him as acting god.
Oh, yeah.
Because he already had Streetcar Named Desire on the waterfront, which cemented him as, like, great actor. And then, The Wild One.
My favorite, yeah.
Yeah, and that cements him as, okay, cultural icon, right? He's of that 50s counterculture rebel thing, in the same class as, like, James Dean.
Yeah,
or even,
and then...
Steve McQueen.
And then in this movie, he's playing the old Don, but in reality, he's only 40 years old in this movie, or in his 40s.
He's 46, I think.
And, hearing it from Talia Shire, where she's like, he walked in and he looked like he was fresh off the waterfront. He was just that striking, and just the ability of, being basically a chameleon and changing into the character of Don Corleone. And it was just like, wow, you're not Brando anymore. You're the Don.
Okay, this was something that came up in another conversation I had off podcast. There's some actors that just take makeup so well.
It's like Colin Farrell in The Batman, the new movie, where,
he disappears.
The entire movie, I sat there and I'm just like, I'm gonna see a snippet of him, and it's just like, no.
He's gone.
This is a completely different person.
And I watched Shawshank Redemption the other day, and Tim Robbins, he's under, like, old age makeup as the film progresses, but it's so subtle you don't really notice, but when you look at him, you're like, oh yeah, no, he looks like he's in his mid to late 50s, he's gotten older, but it's a thing where it looks so natural, and I'm like, yeah, that's skill from the makeup artist, but some people's faces just take makeup so well that you can do a lot of work with even subtle stuff, because Brando, he doesn't look like a 70-year-old, old Italian, but he really took that makeup really well, because there's not a lot of makeup work really done to him. Like, there's not actually a lot of prosthetic.
No, and it was actually, when he went to go audition for this role, he had seen something on TV, and he decided, I want to kind of go in looking like a bulldog. So he put cotton swabs in his cheek to do his audition, and they were like, that's actually genius. And they were able to make him a prosthetic that he was able to put into his mouth to kind of change him. And there's those pictures out there where they show him pre-makeup and with the makeup and the prosthetic, and it's just night and day how different he looks. And
that's the thing, because it's, what, 1-2 prosthetics? I think he has a false nose and, like, the mouth thing piece, right?
Yeah, and I think it was maybe like a 4 or 5 hour restoration to put all the makeup on his face. And
it's such a good performance, because he acts right through it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Marlon Brando, because I think he's gotten the pedigree as not only the acting god, but also somebody who has utter contempt for his work.
Yeah.
Like, he comes off as a guy who was an amazing actor, but hated his job.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the Oscar clip where he's over Sonny? He's like, look how they massacred my boy. Look at him. And then he's holding a ham sandwich just out of frame, because he refused to, like, put it down. Or in the beginning of the movie, where the Don is sitting there and he's playing with a cat in his lap, and people are like,
that's just genius.
Well, and that's the thing. People analyze and they're like, oh my god, it makes so much sense. He's sitting there and he's toying with it. Like, this is the thing. He's power, and this cat is everyone around him. He's playing with them. And in reality, no, Brando just found this cat on set and refused to put it down.
And it works for that scene. It's, you're talking about a murder for hire, basically, in that scene, and he's just, being very gentle with the cat, and you're thinking, he's gonna be, okay, I'll do it, and it turns into, well, I'm the godfather of your child, and never once have you asked me to go get coffee, you've never tried to be my friend.
And it escalates into like a really tense back and forth with the Undertaker, and it's a very like off-putting thing because you see him and he's playing with this like little animal, right? It's the cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
And he's playing with the cat, so he's something above that, and it's a very striking image in the scene, and it's one of those things where is it a perfect acting choice, or is it Brando just not giving a shit? And that's the genius of it, because you can never tell.
Only he knows.
And and that's why he's so good in this movie, because you never tell when he's not caring and when he's giving you the greatest performance you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's because it's so natural, it's so good. And then, you have Al Pacino, you have James Caan, you have John Cazale, you have Robert Duvall, you have literally a murderer's row of some of the greatest actors to have ever done
Diane Keaton's in this movie.
That's right, Diane Keaton's in this movie.
Abe Vigoda's in this movie.
You know what? Abe Vigoda is one of those actors that has morphed into, he's the old Italian guy in all the 90s comedies, right? He's that guy. He's in Good Burger, right? That's him.
He's in Look Who's Talking.
He's one of those actors I will always forget is in The Godfather.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, this movie is so good because he's in this movie and he's like, like fifth bill. There's so many good people in this movie. Who is the best performance here that's not Brando?
I think it would have to be Al Pacino.
It has to be Al Pacino.
Because we see that switch and we just kind of see, I will do this for my father. The father that's like, I don't want you to do this, but my other two sons are not capable of doing this job. It's
Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Because that came up during like that Q&A session, so I'll just paraphrase Coppola. It's a Shakespearean tale. Yeah. It's the king who looks down on his three sons, and each one is like him in a different way. Sonny is his like rage and strength. Fredo. Freddy. He's his like kindness and his sympathy, and Michael is his smarts and his cunning. And that's what we see throughout the movie. Fredo, he's like, live and let live, he'll get slapped around as long as, everything's okay, everything's fine, he forgives, and he's also kind of a weakling, he doesn't really have a spine.
I mean, Dad got shot on my watch, and
he breaks down in tears.
I mean, which didn't even get a single shot off, it's just, he was sitting there fumbling with the gun.
Okay.
And doesn't call 911, it's just... Let me just stand there and watch him.
It's 1946. There ain't no cell phones.
No, there's a payphone. You run to a payphone.
Calling 911 is like yelling to the skies. All right.
At least do that.
I guess. Okay, but I want to point this out because John Cazale.
Yeah.
Is so good.
He is.
He was only in maybe like 5-ish like big films before he passed away. He died of I believe stomach cancer.
Yeah.
And he was in Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Deer Hunter, all nominated, and I believe won Best Picture. He was also in Dog Day Afternoon, which I believe was nominated for Best Picture. He's one of these actors that is really, really good for not having a lot, because, Fredo breaks down, tears, all that stuff. And I know you're like, oh, come on, Fredo, you mook. But it kind of breaks your heart, because that's his character. Yeah. He's so sweet. He's not a killer. He's not Sonny. He's Fredo, he's not cut out for this. And Sonny's a rage machine.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see during the Q&A, Talia Shire was like, John Cazale, she goes, he was so sweet as a person. Just, on screen and off screen, that was his personality, just this sweet guy. Yeah. And it's like, you could see it in his character, but also, you see... You're not Don material. You don't have that kind of...
You don't have the spine for war.
Not even the spine. You don't have that killer instinct. And it's kind of like...
And that's the downfall of Sonny.
That's the downfall of Sonny.
Because he's only killer instinct.
Yes. And his sister Connie, everyone is telling him, cool it, just give it a couple of minutes, and he's just... Nope, like a bullet. I'm going to take off and I don't care where I land. Which ultimately ends up in his demise.
And he's ready to go to war for... any slight. And then you have Michael, who starts off as, he's the chosen one. He's the one that's been chosen to like leave the family and become something great, but He has to come back. And it slowly realizes that he's really good at this.
Yeah.
I noticed, I think it was when he goes to the hospital and he comes in and it's when all the guards and like leave the hospital and he has to...
A nurse to help him move his dad.
Yeah, to move his dad, and then he has to get the baker and they sit outside and they're like, we're going to look like we're thugs and we're going to wait him out. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I think that's when Michael realizes, oh no, he's definitely cut out for this.
Yeah.
Like, he can do this.
He could do this, and I mean, creativity-wise, with, you know, okay, we're going to take down the police chief and this other main by, we're going to go to dinner. And I'm
one of the best scenes in the movie.
And yeah, of course. And it's like, and I'm not going to have a weapon on me, but there's going to be a weapon in the restaurant. And I'm just going to take them out.
He's really good.
He's very methodical.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's really good. He's really methodical. He's cunning. He is everything that the Don Vito wants from him. But the thing is, he's not kind.
No.
He's also not, you know, like, he's not ready to fight. He doesn't have that aggression. Mm-hmm. And that's also kind of his flaw, because he's willing to kill Carlo, like, out the gate.
Yeah.
Right? Because he betrayed Sonny.
Yeah. He's
also like, wow, you did this to Apollonia, but I'm not going to murder you, because it's like, no, that gets in the way of business. Mm-hmm. Everything he does is a calculated move, but it removes his humanity. And that's the whole thing about the end of the movie, where Diane Keaton's Kay asks him, you know, just tell me one time. Just tell me the truth once. Did you kill Carlo?
And you're expecting him, because at first, you know, he blows up, you know, don't be asking me about my business. And then you're thinking, okay, he's gonna tell her the truth. Yeah, you know, I did it.
The Michael at the beginning of the movie would have told her.
Exactly. And, you know, you have, no, of course I didn't. And just, then you get one of my favorite scenes, one of everybody's favorite scenes.
Door.
The door just slowly closing and her, you know, feeling like, oh man, this is not the Michael that I knew. This is now our relationship where I live on the outside of that door.
She is no longer married to Michael Corleone. She's married to Don
Corleone.
And also, that door closing cut, I personally have tried to steal that in like short films for years, and I've seen that shot stolen all the time, and this is the most effective use of that shot. And this movie's so good. Yeah,
because, I mean, not only is that scene iconic with the door, but just to see how far he's come. Because at the beginning of the movie, we see them at Connie's wedding for the first time. Mm-hmm. And he's so willing to tell her, you know, well, this person over here, yeah, you know, he's killed for my father. This one's done this, and that. And it's just, he's so open with this information with somebody that could basically run to the FBI or the cops and be like, hey, this one did that. I could, you know, be a witness to, well, I'm not going to tell you nothing, you know, you take care of the kids, you let me know if we need something, but other than that,
that's it. But The Godfather, because that's what this movie means to us. Like, all these scenes and all these sequences, like, this movie is so good. But this movie also has, like, an impact beyond us. Like, this movie is not just loved, it is beloved. It is not only remembered, it is studied. Yeah. Because, okay, at the time, this movie cost somewhere between like $6-7 million, makes $250 to $300 million in 73? 72.
72.
Yeah, also, fucking A, this comes out in 1972? Yeah. Jesus Christ. So, this movie is a huge box office hit. Gets nominated for, I don't know, a couple dozen Oscars. It wins Best Picture, wins Best Actor for Marlon Brando, and also wins Best Screenplay. This movie is critically lauded, and its impact from that point on, it is number 2 on the AFI Top 100 Films of All Time. Mm-hmm. It is, I think, number 5, 6 on the BFI, the Sight and Sound Top 100 Films of All Time. It is in the top 10 of Empire's greatest films of all time. This movie is continually, for 50 years, been remembered and been critically acclaimed and analyzed, and it has been touted as the greatest film ever made. Or if not, at least top 10, top 5. So why do you think this movie has sustained its cultural impact for so long? Because we've had great movies we've talked about that don't sustain this long. You know, is this just a thing where its light is never faded?
Yeah,
is it a thing where you can't put down quality?
You can't put down quality. It's never faded, but it's also so real, and what it's telling in the story isn't going to change because it's family, it's greed, it's lust, it's all the things that, even though it's set in the 40s, it's stuff that we deal with today. And that's why it's like, even though it's a period piece, it's things that we still deal with on a daily basis. As a family, you know, you deal with parents aging, you deal with your siblings not doing great things, you deal with friends betraying you, you deal with corrupt people. So I think that's why it's still so prominent, because we're still living it.
Yeah, and it's a thing where universal theme. Because that's what's really at the heart of this movie. It has universal themes. You know, family, power, and, you know, like, the corruption, you know, how does the saying go? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on here. You know, Michael starts off as quote unquote an innocent, but once he gets the absolute power of the mafia Don Corleone, he becomes corrupted by it. Mm-hmm. And it's such a well done story. And the other thing is, you know, you can't put down quality.
No.
And the movie, there's not a miss beat in this. Which is weird, because I noticed when we were watching it, there's some shots that are, okay, they're a little soft focused, but they come back around. Or, okay, the blocking here, okay, he moves a little bit too far to one side, and it kind of throws off the balance, but it's a thing where you don't care, because everything is so engaging. I think this comes down to what I say about so many great movies. Story and performance is basically all you need, and everything else is window dressing.
Yeah.
As long as you don't burn it, it'll work out.
Exactly.
And this movie exemplifies that, but everything else is still really fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, we see basically not a whole life, because it's only 10 years, but we see so much of this family's life. In 10 years.
We see the most important parts of it.
We see the most important parts. We see, you know, the end of a life, the beginning of a life, because even though Michael is a grown man, you know, we knew Michael before just slightly, and then we see this whole other part to Michael where basically old Michael's dead, new Michael's in.
We see Sonny die. We see Don Vito die. We see Fredo basically be sent away from the family and turn into a whole different person that Michael barely recognizes.
Yeah.
We see Connie. She gets married. Her husband dies. She has a child in the time at hand, and she goes through horrible things for any woman. You know, she's an abused wife, and how she's reconciling with it. We see so much. We see the entire organization their family is built upon completely shift out from under them.
But I think it's so sad for. I mean, the entire thing is, yes, like a Shakespearean tragedy, but it's so sad to see Connie, because Connie starts off the movie with her wedding, and just to see how happy she is and how happy everybody is, even though the Don is still working the day of her wedding.
Yeah.
But just to kind of see, you know, the next time we get to see her, she's being abused. And her husband just has, you know, zero fucks basically about the way he's treating her, and it's just like,
He married her so he could get a promotion at work. That's what I feel that marriage was for him.
And I mean, even she knew that, you know, don't discuss the family business with him. Just keep him in the dark as much as you can. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, if she had like mentioned it once, like the first time he hit her, just, you know who my family is? They're gonna beat the shit out of you. And it was just like...
And Sonny absolutely did that. And Sonny,
well deserved.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. You can't keep a great movie down, and this movie is great. But where do you want to go on from this one?
I don't know. There's just so much to talk about with this movie. But I think we should probably talk more about Al Pacino, since this was...
basically his breakout.
This was his breakout, and the fact that, you know, Francis Ford Coppola had to fight for him.
And it's another thing, because Al Pacino... Because I've heard people argue, you know, oh, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, who's the greater, you know, actor, right? Because they're the, you know, the Godfather guys that are, yeah. And it's like, Al Pacino had probably like the best run in his prime, right? Because, you know, Godfather, Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, Godfather Part 2,
Scarface.
Yeah, Scarface, even in the 80s. Granted, that we got into that one. That one's a little sus.
We did, but
it's iconic.
It's an iconic role.
His like last true iconic role. But he had a run there where he was actually probably the best actor in America.
Yeah.
And then you have Robert De Niro, who, you know, he has iconic performances up from the 70s all the way into like
today.
Today, like even into like the late 90s, I would say we still have iconic De Niro performances. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you know, Michael Corleone is like the great role. It's the great Shakespearean Machiavellian role.
Yeah. And it's just kind of scary to see how he changes and how methodical he is, because we see, you know, the setup at the restaurant, and that's only leading up to the finale of this movie with the baptism, when he becomes the Godfather himself.
Okay, now that I know I've said, greatest scene in the movie like 5 times. That is not only the greatest scene in the movie, it might be one of the greatest scenes in cinema history. Oh,
absolutely.
It parallels the baptism of the baby under Christ, and then it's also
the baptism of himself as the Godfather.
You know, he's been baptized in this life of crime, and it settles all the debts, and you see people who've shown up throughout the movie that have slighted Michael in one way or the other, and it's him settling his father, and it's him settling it, but it's not personal, it's strictly business. And that makes it so much colder.
And pairing it with the priest doing the service and asking him, you know, do you object the devil? Do you object evil? And, you know,
I do.
And it's just, you know, you have the guns going off at the same time, people being killed, and it's just like, it's like...
It's such a well-edited sequence.
It's like, I don't want to be on your bad side, because you don't even have to be there, and you took out a fleet of your enemies.
And that's the thing. That's the thing about Michael that becomes so terrifying, because again, back to the thing where, you know, the 3 sons that all have a part of their father. Because Sonny and Fredo, you know how they're going to swing, because Fredo is all sympathetic emotions, Sonny's all aggressive emotions, where Michael, it's all cold.
Yeah.
Like, there's no emotion involved.
But there's lots of thought.
There's a lot of thought, and he's like, if this is the logical decision, then I would do it. And that's so much scarier than it's like, okay, as long as I don't piss him off, then I'm fine. Or if I get in his good side, I'll be fine. Michael's like, the moment you are not logistically okay, then it's done. So that's like always like off-putting. It's one of those things where at the end of the movie, when Michael looks through the door at Kay as it's closing, that's where the chills come in.
Yeah.
Such a good performance.
And just leads up to what's happening next in Godfather Part 2.
Oh, I can't wait to watch Godfather Part 2.
Me too. I mean, after that, I was like, I gotta rewatch Godfather Part 2 again, because this movie is just amazing, and then you get Godfather Part 2, and it's like, this is amazing too!
It always gets better.
It's not like, you know, a lot of, you know, movies where you get a Part 2, and it's just like, kind of falls flat. It's like, no, this one, it's like...
Can I just ruin our relationship real quick? Because I find that happens with Star Wars.
That's our big fight. That you prefer A New Hope and I prefer Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, and I know I'm in the minority, because I'm just like, Empire, it's fine. It's cool. It's like, it's whatever. It has the one big plot twist, and that's like it for me. Yeah, New Hope, I feel, is just a more well-composed story and like singular film.
Yeah, but with Empire, you get the story and the universe expanded, and that's what we kind of get in Godfather Part 2, where the universe expands a little bit more. We get details of the past, because this movie, we just see Don Corleone in like the last few years of his life.
Yeah, we get to see his rise
and how he becomes the Don.
Yeah.
And this is basically the story that we have in this movie, with Michael rising and becoming the Don now.
Mm-hmm. I'm just so fascinated with this movie.
Oh yeah,
because
I mean,
it's a movie that should not have been this good. Coppola did it for the money. He's pretty open about it. Right?
Yeah, and it's refreshing to hear, you know, I needed to take care of my family, so I was willing to make whatever movie I had to make, and it's just like, you made a masterpiece. It's just like...
But that's the thing. Coppola did this for the money. The studio was not really behind him at all.
No.
They wanted to do this movie as cheap as possible. They wanted to set it in the 70s. They didn't want it a period piece. They didn't want any of that shit.
They wanted to shoot it in Chicago because it's cheaper.
They wanted as little pushback as possible. And Coppola was like, okay, I'll do it, but I'll do it as well as I can within my means. And he brings on Brando, who at that point was box office like poison.
Yeah.
Like, no one wanted to work with him. He was so difficult to work with. Great actor, but no one thought he would become a movie star again. And then it's like you bring in Al Pacino, untested theater actor that no one had heard of, and then you build the entire movie, and it's an amazing film. It's a fantastic film. And with that, I would say Godfather, highly recommended, definitely deserves its place in cinema. Its impact is definitely still felt.
Absolutely. I mean, if you haven't seen it, run to it, go watch it.
Sorry we spoiled so much of it if you haven't seen it.
I mean, it's also a 50-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen spoilers up till now, where have you been hiding? Because there is so many spoilers wherever you go. I know.
I can't wait for us to talk about Nosferatu, where we spoil it. And I'm like, that movie's 100 years old. How are there still spoilers for this?
It is. But, yeah, just love this movie. I thank the Academy Museum for giving us the opportunity to see it restored, but also to have the Q&A with Francis Ford Coppola and Talia Shire. I think that made our 50th just that much more special.
Oh yeah, that was a fantastic experience, and looking out for more of those if they come up.
Yeah, definitely.
But boo. Next week, we start a new month.
We do. We start a new month, so we're saying goodbye to Mob March. I mean, the best way that we absolutely can with The Godfather.
Exactly.
But next month, we're going to be doing a tribute to a hero. We're going to be doing a tribute to the Batman.
Yes, because the new Batman film has come out, the Batman starring Robert Pattinson, and it has actually gotten a lot of critical hype, and people are really showing up to the theaters for it. And we started thinking, is he actually the best Batman? Because I've heard people say he's the most realistic or the best Batman portrayal we've gotten in years, but
I feel like we get this conversation every time there's a new Batman.
Yeah.
And
where does this stack up?
Exactly, and I think this has probably been the biggest conversation since Bale came out as Batman, so...
I would even say, even Ben Affleck had the huge, is he going to be a good Batman? Is he a good Bruce Wayne?
Oh, yeah.
How is he going to hold up? Even when, I think it was Will Arnett did the Lego Batman, they're like, how good is he? Is he actually the best Batman? Do we know?
Amongst, voters, he's one of the highest ones as Batman.
Which is crazy.
It is, but next month, we're going to be talking about all the first Batman movies. We're going to be doing it in reverse, so we will be starting with...
We're traveling back in time.
We're traveling back in time, so we're starting with The Batman 2022, Matt Reeves, and working our way all the way down to Adam West.
Yes, so stay tuned for that, because it's going to be a lot of fun, because I'm not going to lie, I have not seen a single one of these in... I have no idea. Actually, the Adam West one I've never seen.
Batman, you haven't?
Never seen it.
Wow.
89, last time I saw that, I was 9 years old. And Batman Begins, I don't even know the last time I saw that.
I think I've only seen that one once. It's going to be fun because we're not just going to be watching the movies. We're also going to, at our very, very end of the
series, we're going to rank them.
We're going to rank best Batman, best Batmobile, best Batcave. We're going to turn it into a game. So be prepared for that. Come up with your own answers to what you think is best, because it doesn't have to be all one movie. It could be different people from different movies, different things. And I think that's what's so special about these franchises. We get these characters, back again, and it's kind of like, well, this one brings, something special. This one does this a little bit differently. So it's going to be a good month.
And if you wanted to listen to that, where can they go?
Well, if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Yeah,
you can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That's right, The Film Vault. Formerly known as In the Frame, but we are now The Film Vault. See, I've said it 3 times, so you got to go there.
Yeah, you'd have to.
So go, comment, subscribe, ask us literally anything, and other than that?
Yeah, you could also find us on Instagram at The Film Club Podcast, where you can see pictures of our Q&A with Francis Ford Coppola or any of our other adventures. And with that, We'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.